Good. Hi, Tony. How are you? Pretty good.
Yes, yeah. It's a little different this year, but we're excited to still meet. So.
You're muted.
Wallerman got us those for Christmas.
Yeah, that is a
Like
good
that?
one. I love that.
Morning.
Good.
That's a good question.
Out of the timber. How's everybody doing? Good to see everyone. Good deal.
Yes.
Here.
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 Needed to on my audio stuff. Let me fix this here. Okay. Couple things. Now. Sorry, I gotta get all my stuff for the YouTube channel fixed properly here. I think we should be good now. Hopefully, you all see the agenda now, and I think our audio is being shared, and so we're live on YouTube. We didn't have anybody make comments prior to the meeting, and we don't have any guests with us today, other than Jordan Russell from Weston Company, who will be presenting in a little bit. On the consent agenda, we've got the December 8th board meeting minutes, the monthly bills and financial statement, and we have a couple of resignations. Rachel, would you like to make a statement on the financial statement?
Sure. In December, we received an extra boost to our revenue. We got a PFA state block grant payment of $1.2 million, plus another $200,000 deposit right at the end of December. So that brought our balance at the end of December at $4.6 million. So we're pretty comfortable with that right now, considering that you all are working on your expenditure reports for the IDEA grant to get that money back. We are in process of getting started on the second quarter billing, and so those will go out hopefully by the end of the month, and we should get those soon. So.
Okay. All these were shared with everybody in advance. Does anyone have any questions on any of the financial statement or the employee resignations? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved, Tom Mulligan.
The motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
Diedrich.
Terry Jackson. Diedrich. Any questions or discussion?
Tony, did you say that you're going to get us some financial information so we can complete those second quarter grants?
Yes, not on the your grant periodic reporting system.
Yeah.
The only thing that I need to get you guys is just the amount that you paid of your first quarter bill that was going towards professional development costs, because on that periodic report you have to say like what percentage of your grant you've spent on professional development.
Right.
Our associate director costs have always been written in as professional development, and then obviously EIASE's professional development costs. And because those were a part of the membership, they were just paid up front. And so I'll get that back out to everybody and not do that calculation, because it'll be a different percentage of your grant for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I need to get that out to folks. But everything else on your report should stay the same, unless you were one of the couple of districts that had an LEA finding, and you might have some work that you had to do. We only had a few districts that had those.
So for the expenditure part, it's the same. Would it be the same?
So not on the expenditure part. There's two things. There's one, the quarterly expenditure report, which
that's what we spent, right? In the second quarter.
Right. And then there's the grant periodic report.
Right.
And what I'm talking about is on the grant periodic report.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty easy. That's that form, that PDF form. Then we just need to change the PD amount. But the expenditure report, we'll probably use our first quarter bill for our second quarter expenditures, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And anything else, like we would have some districts who have amended their IDEA grant to maybe write in local special ed costs. So, so if they did that, they'd be their local salaries.
Right. Okay.
And I just want to mention on those expenditure reports, when you report those, each time you send in a new report, there's a checkbox there that you send in your cumulative expense for the year. So if you turn in a reimbursement report between the quarter due one, and you turn that in, and then you have to do the next one for the end of the quarter, you would still use that amount that you'd already reported. You don't ever enter zeros unless you actually have spent zero for the whole year. I've had that question a couple times. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think maybe Rachel, if that's something, if we're having a couple questions, maybe if you could write up something just real quick for folks that we could send out just as a reminder for people as they're doing those reports. I think we haven't taken a vote yet.
We have a first and a second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Carla?
Tom Mulligan,
Yes.
Todd Gallardo,
Abstain.
Todd Butler,
Yeah, he's back. He said yes.
Terry Jackson,
Yes.
Kevin Ross,
Yes.
Kent Stouter,
Yes.
Danette Young,
Yes.
Eric Van Hulten.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I'll turn the meeting now over to Jordan Russell from Weston Company. They've conducted our FY20 audit and has the auditor's report ready to share with us today.
Good morning, everybody. Tony, if you could present my screen here.
Sure, if I stop presenting, will it let you present?
That's okay if it doesn't.
There we go.
All right, so this year's financial statements, you guys don't have a draft in your hands because obviously we are meeting virtual, And we were waiting on an attorney letter to come back from EIASE's attorney. We did get that back yesterday afternoon. So the financial statements that we're reporting on today, we do not anticipate them changing at all. They have not been issued yet because of the short turnaround from getting the attorney letter yesterday afternoon. We do anticipate getting them wrapped up here in the next week or so and getting physical copies to both the ROE and EIASE. Rachel will get you a PDF to put on EIASE's website as well. Once that's done, the AFR will be submitted to Illinois State Board of Education, and everybody should be happy and good. As far as the numbers, how the numbers turned out this year, again this year, the audited financial information is reflected in the AFR, which is issued to us by ISB. We issued an adverse opinion on EIASE's financial statements, which means they do not conform with the generally accepted accounting principles. However, we issued an unqualified opinion or clean opinion on the financial statements be prepared on the regulatory basis of accounting, which is what ISB requires. These financial statements are prepared on the modified accrual basis of accounting, which means that revenue is recognized when it's earned and expenditures are recognized when it's incurred rather than when they're paid. Revenues exceeded expenditures by about $600,000 this year. EIASE budgeted for revenues equal to expenditures. In FY20, actual expenditures were less than budgeted amounts by approximately $1.2 million. In addition, revenue was approximately $500,000 less than the amounts budgeted. As you can see, revenues increased approximately $600,000 and expenditures increased approximately $150,000 from FY19. If you were to look at the cash and fund balance, you'll see that fund balance at June 30th, 2020 was approximately $5.5 million. The cash account had about a balance of $1.3 million, which is about 3 3/4 weeks worth of expenses. Note that the fund balance of $5.5 million would support about 15.5 weeks of expenses, which is fairly consistent with last year's numbers of 14 weeks of expenses. On the bottom of this second page here, you'll see that we have a reconciliation for the June 30th, 2020 cash that you're accustomed to seeing. I think Rachel includes this in her monthly packet. It kind of reconciles the cash balance to fund balance, which is reported on the financial statements. We had the same reconciling items as last year. As far as findings goes, we had 3 findings this year. We did have finding number 1 was repeated from last year. This was due to EIASE submitting 3 quarterly expenditure reports late. Those 3 quarterly expenditure reports were also the final expenditure reports for the FY19 grant year. Those had already been submitted late prior to Rachel knowing about them, about our finding last year. So we don't anticipate this issue being repeated. And I think that Rachel and Tony have put in the procedures necessary to mitigate that finding going forward in the future. Finding number 2 was due to a material journal entry that we needed to make to reclassify capital outlay from purchase services. The capital outlay purchases that were reclassified with the journal entry were related to the building improvements funded through the IDEA flow-through grant. We do not anticipate that this finding will be repeated in the future. The last finding we had was finding number 3, and that is due to the late submission of the FY19 AFR to ISB. ISB requires that the AFR be submitted by December 15th, and the FY19 AFR was not submitted until February of 2020. We do anticipate that this finding will be repeated next year, as this year's AFR, the FY20 AFR, will not be submitted till sometime here in January. We would like to thank Tony and Rachel and everyone at EIASE who helped us out during the audit. We're glad to help you guys out at any chance that we can get. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact our office and give us a shout, and we'd be glad to help out in any way that we can.
Thank you, Jordan. Any questions for Rachel, myself, or Jordan regarding the audit? Okay, if there are none, do I have a motion to approve the auditor's report as presented?
So moved, Tom Mulligan.
Second, Todd, Charleston.
Motion and second. Any questions or discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Carl.
Tom Mulligan,
Yes.
Todd Velardo,
Yes.
Todd Butler, Kerry Jackson,
Yes.
Kevin Ross,
Yes.
Kent Stouter,
Yes.
Danae Young,
Yes.
Eric Van Holden.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Want to thank Jordan and his team from Weston Company. I know it's a fun process every year to go through the audit. So, but you wouldn't do it if you didn't like it, I guess. So, thanks again, and appreciate your help.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Jordan. We've got 2 agenda items left here. The first one is our board policy updates, which I've made an attachment of here. These are from Press Policy 106. There are a couple of policies with minor changes that relate to some of the financial structure, some of those recommendations. I've shared those with Rachel to take a look at. The rest, for the most part, the rest of this series of updates from this last November are a lot of references and legal reference, just in the footnotes. So there's not very substantial changes in this policy update. This is just the first reading of the policy review, so there's no required action at this point. We'll take a look at this again next month and ask the board to adopt those policy changes. Next agenda item is discussion of minutes lawfully closed. I've got a list here of all of our current minutes, closed session minutes that are maintained as closed, and it's my recommendation that the board move to maintain all of those closed session minutes as closed. Do I have a motion to that effect?
Motion, Diedrich.
Motion, and Mr. Butler made a second. Okay, motion and a second. Any questions or discussion? Okay, roll call vote, Carla.
Tom Mulligan,
Yes.
Todd Velardo,
Yes.
Todd Butler, Kerry Jackson,
Yes.
Kevin Ross,
Yes.
Kent Stouter,
Yes.
Danae Young,
Yes.
Eric Van Holden.
Yes.
Okay, that's the last agenda item. I think the only other thing that I wanted to just discuss, I guess, briefly with folks on the board is just kind of last year sometime we talked about investigating, maybe needing to do something different with our Kansas TLC building program, and I just wanted to provide an update of where we were at with that. I talked with Mr. Haston at Kansas, and I talked with John Julius at Casey. I think at this point my recommendation would be that we investigate not moving for next school year, but for the school year after that, that we'd be looking at possibly moving the Kansas TLC program to Casey, to their Roosevelt building. We've got an opportunity for more space, a larger gymnasium, I think, and I think that one of the biggest things that we were looking at here is we needed to be in a community that has has emergency type services, whether it's police or a regular ambulance service that can respond in a more timely fashion. I think that as the state has evolved in their position on what they will allow in terms of being able to physically manage students that are in a that are violent or that are in a crisis mode, and as those types of expectations have changed and are continuing to change. For example, this summer, or this will be the last school year where prone or supine restraints are allowed. Our folks at Kansas report that when they do have to call the police to intervene and help, or an ambulance, it's usually a 40-minute wait, and we just it's really not going to be long term. We don't see a way forward to kind of stay in that building, in that community, and keep staff safe, keep our students safe. We are implementing a significant amount of changes in terms of our program in order to help create space for kids to be able to go and de-escalate and for us to be able to handle more crisis type situations in a nonviolent manner, and we are having success with making those changes. But we also know that there are going to come times where those things simply don't work, and that when they don't, we need help, and when that happens, we'll need help fairly quickly, and so I think that's why we're looking at moving that program. What I'm going to go and talk with Casey's school board and see if they would be open to the idea of a 2-year lease on the building. The first year, which we wouldn't occupy, it would be like a dollar lease type of agreement where we would just be able to get in and have access to the building. It's not being used currently, but we could get we'd have some wiring and things like that to get not electrical but just internet and those kinds of things. Make some capital type of improvements to the building to get it ready for us to occupy for the 22-23 school year. We are also this summer moving our Fresh Start TLC program in Effingham from the east side building in Effingham to the west side building in Effingham, where we'll have again more space. We'll go from a building that has basically 6 classroom spaces to 10 classroom spaces, giving us options for that we don't currently have. And so my other thought with that is, if we can handle one move at a time and not try to handle a move in Effingham and then a move from Kansas to Casey at the same time. I think spreading those things out will help us. So that's just an update. It's obviously, when it comes time to look at a lease or to approve anything like that, whatever kind of discussions I'd be having would be preliminary, and draft discussions would bring it. Both boards would have to have approval on any sort of agreement and action. So I'm just letting folks know that that's kind of where things currently stand, and if folks have questions, I'd be happy to sit down and kind of go over particulars with any of you. And if you do have questions, feel free to reach out, and I'll give you a call or come by and we can sit down and talk. All right. Any questions, thoughts, discussion for the good of the cause?
Tony, I heard you say you wanted individual questions. Were you wanting to not have a dialogue in this forum?
We can. I just didn't know if folks, I guess my thought was if people had questions specifically about their district, but if you wanted to have dialogue in this forum, absolutely.
I just didn't want to put you on the spot, but well, at the risk of putting you on the spot, could you give us a little background with regard to the lack of response from law enforcement or first responders? What kind of, how would that look different in KZ? Have you reached out to law enforcement there? What other creative ideas have we considered, even as crazy as it may seem, but hiring an SRO for Kansas?
I have not reached out yet to the KZ Police Department. That is something that's on my list of to-dos and to reach out to Nick Greathouse, who's the mayor, to make sure that we would have a good partnership there. My assumptions of what that response would be like are basically coming from D. Scott and John Julius, of talking with them of what it's like for them. Another thing so we have the emergency service response issue, and this is something that I've talked about with folks at Kansas and at least one of their board members who I'm a friend with, and the Kansas facility is a very dated facility, and I think that if we were going to stay there long term, there are some other things that we would want them to take a look at addressing. Like, for example, there's the bathrooms that are in the number of bathroom stalls and bathroom spaces in that building are real, I would just say, inadequate and very dated. For example, the boys' bathroom, the only the janitors, it doubles as a janitor's supply, or not supply closet, but the janitor's closet, where his chemical sink is the same sink that the students use for washing, if we were to ask to maybe make renovations and try to take some space and make a new bathroom suite that could maybe work for boys and girls. If they had to get into the floor, my understanding is that it's asbestos floor tile, so it gets, some of those things get very expensive. The windows in that building all need replaced. A lot of that. I think that there'd be a significant, when we've talked about, there's just a significant amount of money that we would want to see invested in the property, which the district might be willing to do. But then on the emergency services side of things, I think that there are some things that we could maybe look at in terms of like hiring an SRO and seeing if the district would be interested in partnering with that. I think that where I'm coming from with it is when I sit down and kind of start tallying up the numbers of what all it would take to make that an ongoing and continued viable option in terms of cost versus when some of those things are already built in over at the other location, that to me it makes sense. Now, nothing's happened, in terms of officially one way or the other in terms of moving. But if folks would rather see, I guess maybe a more detailed pricing list and those kinds of things, I'd be happy to sit down with Kansas and say let's kind of flesh this out and see what that would look like. Right now, because Kansas schools problems, I mean, when we've shared our concerns with a lack of full-time police force in the community, and then you're calling Edgar County and you get a slow response time from their school district has the same concerns. I mean, when they've needed somebody, it's not always readily present as well. So there may be solutions there to some of those issues that could work out. I don't think it'd be without significant cost, and then, like I said, in terms of a long-term investment in that property, and I think that I think one of the other things that would be worth doing would be, if we do get to the point where we're wanting to take a look at this one way or the other, I think it'd be worth having a look at both buildings and kind of seeing, for what we need in terms of space, for our students, which building offers the better layout or the better possibility for
Yeah, Tony, it appears that there are more arrows pointing away from Kansas as opposed to merely a first responder matter. So thanks for sharing that. That's helpful.
Okay. Yeah, and I realize this kind of does create kind of a rough situation on some of our districts where Casey's not a great line of sight, and we're gonna have to work with some of our districts on the northern side of the co-op to maybe drive to Humboldt instead. And but I think that we've got 2 years to work through some of those.
I'll just chime in. I mean, being where we're at geographically, that'd be a win for us, having it in Casey rather than Kansas. And I'd also say on the buildings, having been in both, I think a lot of times when you're taking parents over to Kansas and trying to convince them this is good, they look around and they understand what we're doing. Roosevelt and Casey's school, there's a little bit more presentable and doesn't seem like a place where we're casting them off. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm biased. I'm biased being 15 minutes away.
Well, Roosevelt certainly has that good curb appeal, and I think that that's also one of the. And I'm not. Please don't take this as me disparaging the Kansas district anyway. I mean, we've been there for 35 years. They've been great landlords to us. They have invested in that building to what that district can financially manage. It's just that building was set to be potentially closed 35 years ago, and we've been able to go in and make good use of it. It's just 35 more years on an already old building. I think that things are just to the point where I don't know that for that community it makes financial sense for them to invest the kind of money that it would take to make that a place where you could take parents and they would be excited about their kid going there. That, Kevin, you probably know the just a guesstimate on the dollar amount of something like that. Just not just structural, but curb appeal wise, like that it'd be a pretty significant investment to ask that community to make. That if they're, I know that they're getting 1% money now, and they're excited that some of their EAD is going up with the new solar farm outside the community, but I hate to say, all right, now that you guys are finally kind of getting your financial feet under you for the first time in a while, we'd like you to take that extra money and spend it in a rental. I just don't see that happening.
I would say too, on the response with regards to police in Kansas, it's been rough. Clark County, anytime we've needed them, they're present, quick, and easy to work with. So I think that's been our experience. Sheriff Brown he's from Casey, and our guys that we work with, they've got a pretty good presence in our school. They've got a pretty good presence in Casey's school as well. I can't speak to their city police, but I know our county are very responsive and easy to work with.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, discussion? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Todd in Charleston moves.
All right. Second?
Oka.
Oka Valley. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everybody. Meeting adjourned at 9:02 a.m. Have a good week.
Have a good one, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks.